Monday Night Wars Podcast.
Hello and welcome to February 10th, 1997. We are at the Jacksonville Coliseum in Jacksonville, Florida, as Lee Marshall promised us. He's a man of his word. Anyways, we are live with WCW Nitro. I yelled that so loud, I got some reverberation in my wall, so we'll see if that picks up. Anyways, with me as always is Joseph. Joseph, how are you?
I am good, and today is an important night in wrestling history.
You mean Thursday night?
Oh, God, you're right. Yeah, Thursday night isn't important. Fuck it.
So this is the Monday Night Wars, but one of the programs, Raw, is not actually on Monday this week. It's on Thursday. It's on Thursday, Raw, Thursday, which they say over and over and over and over and over again, and I will also say for comedic effect. But we're in Nitro right now. We got Tony. We got Larry, and we're going to talk about what's going on. And we get Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero to start it off. So, I mean, people getting their money's worth right off the bat here. 4 minutes, 57 seconds. This is for the U.S. Championship and the Cruiserweight Championship or something. I don't know. I don't know how it works. They're billing it as like a U.S. Championship versus the World Cruiserweight Championship, but I don't think either of them are on the line, right?
I don't think so. I think it's just a title versus title match, but not for each title.
Well, even if they are, because they might be, they figure out a way to make sure these titles don't change hands. Tell me about it.
They do. So clearly, by the way, speaking of not the titles, but speaking of Eddie and Dean Malenko, clearly Bischoff listened to us bitching last week about, bro, why is this on your Saturday program and not on your Monday program? So, Bischoff, good job listening to us. Appreciate you. Dean grabs a mic before the match starts, and he tells Six, who stole his belt the previous week, that he is giving him an open invitation to get schooled in wrestling any night. And that's it. That's the end of the promo. Dean is not a great talker, and so when you have not a great talker, just say what you need to say and then stop. And I love that.
Perfect Dean promo. Perfect Dean promo.
I also love matches like this because I can confidently just tell you to go watch it. Six comes out to taunt Malenko and steal the U.S. belt as well because he's already got the Cruiserweight belt and he wants that U.S. belt back. Now, Eddie sees this and chases him and grabs the belt before Six can leave. Because of Eddie doing this, he gets counted out before he can make it back into the ring. And Malenko realizes he didn't win by himself and shakes Eddie's hand to almost say, hey, man, I'm sorry that this happened this way. I actually love this character for Six. I mentioned it last week. I really enjoy it. And it's kind of exactly what WWF should have been doing with him at the end of his stint as 1-2-3 Kid. They just really failed to make it happen. Like, he should be smarmy. He should be, this little rat. That's what he should be. And they're doing that here, and it works perfectly. Their storyline, there's a phenomenal match before the title gets stolen and all that. I gave this an A+. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
What can you say? Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, two of the greatest cruiserweights to ever do it. Great match, worth watching anytime these two are up together. I liked it. It was good. It was good. After that, though, we get just nuts. This gets kind of nuts real fast because Tony's trying to tell us what we just saw, but DDP says, nah, it's about me now. He comes out with a chair in one hand, a mic in the other, and comes marching down to the ring, opens it, puts it flat down middle of the ring, which we love. We love when they do that because we're about to get a DDP bomb, a DD pipe bomb. Tell me about it.
Real quick, this is before chairs were purely, steel chairs, quote unquote. So his chair is like a nice padded folding chair, which made me chuckle. You are right, though. He sits down with it. He sits, he's doing a sit-in, a good old-fashioned sit-in in the middle of the ring. And he says, it's pretty obvious that DDP's got a big old bullseye in the middle of his forehead. And because of that, I got something to say. I've never been accused of being the smartest guy, and this might be one of the stupidest things I've ever done. But I've come out here tonight to make a statement. And the statement is, I'm tired of running. So if something is going to happen, let's let it happen right now. And right on cue, not the outsiders, Sting and Macho come down from the stands in matching black and white, and they step in the ring as they begin to circle DDP. Mach taps the chair with a baseball bat. He hits the chair hard enough finally that DDP jumps up and Mach kicks the chair away, then tosses the bat to Sting. Sting points the bat at DDP and pushes him with it into the turnbuckle. He goes to swing at DDP and stops himself, which makes DDP kind of flinch to protect himself. Then he decides to hand the bat to DDP. He and Mach turn their backs on him, and DDP chooses not to swing, and both men leave through the crowd, with DDP standing in the middle of the ring, trying to figure out what is going on. I love the whole Sting thing. I've loved what's been going on with him. I think they got to keep milking it. Don't shoot the shot too early, so I'm great with that. Adding DDP as a wrinkle to this is fantastic. It's the right call. We don't know what their motivation is. We don't know if they're part of NWO and all that, even though they're clearly not part of NWO. And I love that DDP is now kind of getting stuck in the middle of this, especially because DDP is a great talker. And if you're going to have Mach and Sting, who are also great talkers, not say anything, you need someone to be doing something. So DDP is really good for this role. I personally think this is a white hot start to Nitro. It gets another A+ from me.
It's fantastic. I love the ambiguity. Afterwards, Larry and Tony are talking about, like, what is this? We don't know what that was. Tony thinks it's maybe an initiation, that maybe Sting, Savage, and DDP are now together. Larry says, nah, it was a chess move, and we got to see how DDP's going to play it, right? Great. I wish these three were kind of like the three against the NWO. It doesn't end up working out that way, which I think is a bad thing. But I like this right now. I like where this is going. I don't like where it ends up, but I like where it's going right now. Yeah. Watching in 1997. After that, we go into Conan versus Bobby Eaton. 1 minute, 22 seconds. Have a feeling I know what happens here.
Conan is bad about it, even including having a Cholo-style rap as his theme, not the Dungeon of Doom music. I don't think this means he's left Dungeon of Doom. I could be wrong. I'm not sure. Kevin Sullivan's absolutely the kind of guy who would just write him out without giving any explanation. But it is very much more in line with the Conan that we know. So that's kind of cool. Conan, of course, wins. He hits his brainbuster, and that's the end of the match. It's fine for as long as it is. I gave it a C.
Yeah, just a palate cleanse, right? No real story here. Just two guys wrestling, but not bad. I don't think it was a bad match. After that, though, we come back from a break, and we got some footage from last week. NWO attacked Flexi Lexi, left him unconscious. Then we go on to the Giant versus, hold on, let me get my peepers on here.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. That's not how this starts.
What did I miss it?
Yeah, you missed it. So there's.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I got this stuff. Yeah. Okay. I guess I shouldn't have given away the title of this match because it changes. There's a match that Lex may or may not be involved in. Why don't you tell me about it?
So it is Ron Powers. You got your peepers, and that's who you're going to say was Ron Powers comes out to the ring, and then Lex Luger is his opponent. Luger comes out, and he's got a cast on his left arm after the beatdown last week. Bischoff comes out to interview him instead, and he says he has to ask about the cast and is his hand broken? Lex says that is correct, and this is where the big boys play. He is casting up and wrestling just like they do in the NFL. And then Bischoff says, as the highest ranking official in WCW, he has a responsibility to not let a wrestler wrestle hurt. So he needs a doctor's release or he won't Lex wrestle. Lex is understandably pissed, and Bischoff is doing great heel work here. And Bischoff then tells him if he doesn't have a release tonight before Bischoff apparently has to leave the country, not only will he not wrestle tonight, but also he won't wrestle at Super Brawl. So Lex is incensed, and Bischoff says it's so difficult being this responsible as Lex leaves the arena. While this is happening and Bischoff is pandering to the crowd, The Giant walks out behind him and the crowd cheers. Bischoff, not seeing him, thinks they're cheering him, and when he realizes that it's the Giant, he runs. Giant takes Luger's place in this match and dominates Ron Powers, go figure, for the win. I do love Bischoff's heel work here. Then Mike Tenay grabs a mic and he interviews the Giant. Tenay asks about the recent ruling from Bischoff. How can Giant face both men? Giant says, first of all, we aren't dealing with a normal man here. We're dealing with a true fire-breathing, walking 400-pound, 7'4" Giant. He isn't concerned about having a partner because he has Lex Luger. Luger let him in when no one else would. Luger has the heart and the intensity. He wants to ask Luger a question, so Luger comes back out. He asks Luger, after everything Hall and Nash have done, if Luger has one shot, one opportunity to seize everything he ever wanted, one moment, would he capture it or let it slip? Lex's palms are sweaty, his knees are weak, arms are heavy, there's vomit on his sweater already, mom's spaghetti. On the surface, he does look calm and ready to drop bombs, but he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth and says, no, I win it.
Okay.
Giant says, I thought so, and announces that if he wrestles alone, he will not only beat both men, but he'll take the tag team titles for himself, and Luger is his co-champion. Luger snaps back into reality, and they shake hands. Honestly, all things considered, even Giant's promo, for the most part, like from Luger walking out all the way to this end promo, I really like this. I gave this an A.
Yeah, I really liked it. At first, I was kind of like, why is Bischoff saying you can't wrestle tonight with a broken arm? Because, he doesn't like Lex, right? Lex is not team NWO, so why would he care? In fact, I want Lex to further injure himself, right? Because I don't like him. But then you get the angle of, you can't wrestle tonight, and if I don't get a doctor note, you can't wrestle at Super Brawl either. That's the piece, right? That's the piece of the puzzle. Because Lex and Giant going up for the World Tag Team Championship at Super Brawl. So that is relevant, right? Because it's the outsiders. It makes a lot of sense. I did really kind of like the angle, though, that Giant was going to wrestle them himself and keep the titles for himself.
Yeah.
I kind of like that angle. Like, obviously, I don't think he should beat the outsiders doing that, but I would kind of love if Giant or some big dude like him was the tag team champion himself and just had both titles, right? I kind of think...
I feel like that's happened before, but I can't remember when. So if you're listening to this and you go, oh, I know exactly when that happened, let us know.
I feel like that would be a fun angle. I don't think it's right for this particular storyline.
Yeah.
But I like that angle. Anyways, after that, the NWO is here. They're pulling up in their big old limousine. Six is already here to greet them. They come out. They say they're working men's champions. Well, maybe not all of them. Maybe not all of them. But they're ready to go tonight. Big Bubba apparently wants a piece of DDP. Says he's going to wrestle him at Super Brawl. He doesn't. And they want some tonic ready in the car for the ride home. I liked it. What'd you think?
Honestly, wasn't overly a fan of it, mostly because Big Bubba really chewed up the scenery and he just doesn't work. It doesn't work with them.
They kind of ignore him. This is kind of funny about it. They're like, this ain't working for us, bro. We're ignoring it. I liked everything Kevin Nash was doing, I guess I should make clear. Yeah. Because that was good. After that, though, we got the Steiner Brothers versus High Voltage. That's from something. Anyways, 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
So it's important to note right now that Nitro actually has Nitro girls on this episode. I don't know if they've had them before, but they for sure have them here. They've shown them a couple times. They aren't really calling them the Nitro girls on TV yet. They aren't doing like random dances and stuff like that. That hasn't happened yet. That will happen within the next few months. And Kimberly will be kind of front and center on it, but always is off on choreography, which is hilarious. But this is like I don't know if this is the debut, but this is pretty close to the debut. Like they're definitely showing them here. Steiners have a picture-in-picture, and they say they are the best because they already beat the champions and that they will work their way back up to the titles. The Steiners obviously dominate High Voltage as Faces of Fear watch on. So it turns out there's going to be a 4-way dance for who can be like number one contender again. which is why last week they had that weird thing with Public Enemy and Faces of Fear during like whichever tag team match it was. So it's like, okay, it's going to be Harlem Heat, Public Enemy, Faces of Fear, and the Steiners. So it's starting to make sense. We said last week, we'll see where this is going. It's starting to kind of make sense with all that. I gave this a C.
I will go back to your point about the Nitro Girls. They're not officially the Nitro Girls yet.
Interesting.
That comes in July, where they get their official coronation as the Nitro Girls. So they're here, but they're not here. After that, though, we got another NWO promo. Tony and Larry tell us that Roddy Piper going to be in the house, but NWO says we ain't got time for that shit. It's time for us to talk. Joseph, this is a long one, so I'm just going to let you run through it.
Okay. I did condense it pretty well, I think. So the Outsiders in 6, they come out with Bischoff to commentary. Bischoff says, we have business to take care of, and he makes the commentators leave. He got a memo from his secretary that Randy Anderson wants to talk to him, so they invite him out, and he walks out with his family. Anderson, if you remember, was fired 2 weeks ago, I believe, because they didn't talk about him last week, by Bischoff. And so Anderson grabs a mic and asks for his job back, saying he wants Bischoff to see the pain he has caused his family. Bischoff says, you're right. Maybe I should have given this more thought. He asked for the kids' names. His daughter is named Montana, and his son is named Chase, and his wife is Christy. Bischoff, by the way, does say, we love that name Montana. That makes a lot of sense. I think Bischoff lives in Montana or Wyoming. Like, he loves that area. That makes a lot of sense for Bischoff. That's a random note. It has nothing to do with this. He tells them to come closer, specifically the kids, but the whole family gets closer. He tells the kids to come up and ask them to do a favor and tell their daddy that he's still fired, which Nash and Hall laugh their asses off to. I actually laughed too, but that's not really important. Montana pleads with Bischoff, and Randy asks, is there anything he can do? And Bischoff tells him to learn how to deal with adversity. But he actually has a test for adversity for him to prove that he has the heart, and he wants Randy Anderson to wrestle Nick Patrick next week. If you remember, Randy Anderson recently recovered from cancer. So this plays into this. And Christy, his wife, tells him, no, absolutely not. You know what the doctors have told you. You can't do this. And then Hall says, well, I guess we know who wears the pants in the family, which is a fantastic line from Hall. And then Randy says, I wrestled cancer. I can wrestle him. Bischoff tells the Outsiders to get ready to wrestle because they are the working man's champs, and everybody leaves as we prepare for the next match. This is another strong Nitro segment for me. I gave it an A+.
Randy Anderson is really good at this.
Yes.
We talked about this last week, the Roddy Piper promo, where I was actually kind of emotional. I felt bad for what they were doing to him. Another example of that here with Randy Anderson, like, whole family's out to plead his case, say, please hire my dad back. He just defeated cancer. He needs the money. And they tell him to go pound sand. I hate the NWO. I'm so mad. They did a great job. I thought this was fantastic. And then I also love, again, that they mentioned the working man's champion thing, because it's so great for the next match.
Correct.
It makes the next match worth watching, because it's the Outsiders versus the Extreme, who are Ace Darling and Devin Snow. I don't have to put on my peepers because we've already seen them before. But again, they're nobodies, right? So they're booking nobodies to wrestle the working man champions, the Outsiders, which I think is fantastic. 1 minute, 27 seconds. We know where this is going.
Bischoff actually invites Larry Zbyszko back to join him. He doesn't want to do commentary by himself. The Extreme come out and the Outsiders take them out from behind immediately. They just decimate the Extreme. Zbyszko willingly talks shit about the Outsiders, much to Bischoff's dismay. They obviously win, and then Six hands them their belts and asks them, after their Mat Classic, which is how he describes it, how do they prepare for a team like the Extreme? And Nash says the other day he opened up Webster's dictionary and he looked up the word giant. It said goof, goon, dork, fool. They used it in a sentence. Oh my God, you got a giant boil on your back. You want to be a giant? Be one. Us, we'll just continue being too sweet. Then Hall says, hey, yo. And then he says, here's a little lesson in genetics for you, you big goof. Kevin Nash is also 7 feet tall, except, and I love this line, except he stopped at the cool stage while you slid on past into the dork meter. And everyone knows that a couple of Clydesdales, or is it Clydesdales, like you and that punk Luger with his lame arm, can't run with no thoroughbreds. Nash says, Luger, we're real sorry about your injury, and you shouldn't spend so much time in the back working out. This is phenomenal. It's another A+. Like, Nitro is killing it tonight.
I also love how they won.
Yes.
Because Nash puts, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Devin Storm into a torture rack. They win on a torture rack, which I think is kind of fun. The reverse torture rack, I had to look it up because it wasn't the normal torture rack, but I feel like that's a shot at Luger.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And
so I think the whole thing it was fantastic. And then also Six at the end tells Malenko to come get his belt back if he wants. And I like that too. He's like, come and try and get it, friend. It's great stuff. And then we had an hour number 2. We got Tony, we got Bobby, we got Mike Tenay. You like how I do that?
That's beautiful, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. They're talking about how Eric Bischoff a big old piece of shit doing that to Randy Anderson, and they right. He is. And then they also say Eric a big piece of shit for what he's doing to Lex Luger because Bischoff is scared of Lex and wants to protect the outsiders. He right. They right. They're spitting truth here, man. And now we get what we were promised last week. We get Rey Mysterio Jr., not Ray Mendoza Jr. or whatever it was last week. We get the real deal, the real man versus Lord Steven Regal for the television championship. They put the television championship on television, Joseph. This is wild. 6 minutes, 56 seconds.
So this is a match I didn't take many notes on because when you have these two guys, it's going to be phenomenal. And I can just tell you, you need to watch this match. It's a phenomenal match between Mysterio, and he has the win at the end of this match, which you said 6 minutes. This is hilarious.
Yep.
Because he has the win, but at the 2 count, before they can get to 3, the match reaches a time limit draw. And so Regal keeps his title, and Regal is so relieved. It's a phenomenal end. These two do not have a storyline, so I couldn't give this one an A. I'm giving it a B+. But man, what a great fucking finish. Even though 6 minutes, how is that a time limit? So far, this has been a great episode of Nitro.
Yeah, I mean the old 6 minute, 56 second time limit. Very, very well known in wrestling. That exact number, 6 minutes, 56 seconds. That's the time limit. You didn't know that?
See, you know way more than I do.
Yeah. It's an old wrestling. It's an old wrestling rule. You just wouldn't know. Yeah. Clearly not a fan. After that, though, we get the man of the hour. We get Lee Marshall with the 1-800-COLLECT road report at a place called Jesse's in Tampa, Florida. Yeah. And he's also getting ready for a Nitro party in Atlanta. And he's telling everybody to show up. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
And there might
go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and there might be something about a Tampa Bay weasel, Joseph. About it.
So I real quickly want to talk about the Nitro party in Atlanta, because he says that he's getting prepared for that while everybody else gets to Tampa, Florida. He's already getting prepared for that. And you kind of mentioned this. He says it's going to be at a place called Jocks and Jill's at the CNN Center and invites fans to join him. Scott, we going?
I feel like we have to. I wonder if it's real. It's got to be real, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously we bought tickets months ago because you got it.
Yes.
The line is so long. You have to. He says that he will be with Atlanta's best while Mike and Tony are stuck with Atlanta's pest. He says he found out why the new baseball team in Tampa Bay is named the Devil Rays. And they say, well, why is that? Turns out there already was a team called the Tampa Bay Weasels. Then Bobby says to all the waitresses waiting on Lee Marshall, the only difference between Lee and a canoe is that a canoe tips. A+, phenomenal. After Bobby had nothing last week, Bobby comes back swinging this week.
I have to tell you, Jocks and Jills, Real establishment.
Hell yeah.
We got to go. The Atlanta, see, the problem is the Atlanta location is closed, though, like permanently.
Oh, man.
But it looks like they have a location in Charlotte. And you know what I got to say about that? Woo! We're going to go.
Probably closed because Lee Marshall passed away, so they couldn't have Nitro parties there anymore.
May he rest in peace. Yeah, that was their business. If we don't have no Nitro party, we're done. I'm watching a lot of the show Bar Rescue because I just really find the economics of bars and restaurants. I watch all those shows, Kitchen Nightmares, all that, because I find the economics of that stuff interesting, right? And I tell you, I could see this on Bar Rescue. If we don't have another Nitro party, we're done. We need John Tapper to come and save us. I love it. Anyways, let's get into the next match because this is so exciting. This one here. This is Kevin Sullivan versus, hold on, let me put on my papers, Maverick Wild.
Oh,
that's
man.
it, bro. That's it. 2 minutes, 13 seconds.
They gave this one 2 minutes? Oh,
Yep.
man. Taskmaster wins and is then interviewed by Tenay. Sullivan tells Nancy and Chris last night he laid in bed alone when the second closest person in her life called him Paul E. Now, I genuinely am wondering if this is a reference to Paul E. Dangerously, aka Paul Heyman. I do know they all knew each other. They all worked together. I think women even worked in ECW for a little while. So that'd be interesting if that was a reference to him. I'm not positive. There's really nothing I can go off of. Paul E. asked, how is everything going? Sullivan said the deal's gone south. Paul E. said, you have worked too hard to lose this job. And then this is where it just goes off the rails. He says he took no sides, but told Sullivan to do his job. What would his mentor, Jim Barnett, say to him? He'd say, do your job. What will your tag team partner, Mark Lewin? Look, he repeatedly says, do your job over and over for like 10 fucking minutes, it feels like. And this falls off the track, and I hate it, and it gets an F.
Do you think he knows that he's like, is he gonna get fired? And he's just like, you can't fire me if I book the show without me being the booker, huh?
Well, he never gets fired. He just gets removed as booker for a while.
I wonder if he knows though. And he's like, you can't remove me as position of booker if I'm telling everyone I'm the booker on TV. Is that it? I don't know what's going on. This is insane. I hate all of this. Stop making it about you, Kevin Sullivan. It's so bad. Ugh. Anyways, John Jerkovic from the Jacksonville Jaguars is here. That's cool, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we show Roddy Piper getting his ass beat again.
Yeah, they do the whole segment.
The whole thing, which doesn't have as much of an impact as it did last week because I don't want to see the whole thing again. After that, though, we got Hugh Morris versus Alex Wright, which is 2 minutes, 18 seconds. They gave these guys, 4 more minutes than they gave Kevin Sullivan. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
4 more seconds than they gave Kevin Sullivan and Maverick Wild. That is some bullshit.
There is no storyline on this one.
No.
Morris wins with the power bomb, and then he hits his moonsault, which is a gorgeous moonsault. I'm giving this a C.
2 minutes, 18 seconds, though, after Kevin Sullivan and Maverick Wild. That is wild because, we don't maybe like Hugh Morris on a personal level because it sounds like he's kind of a douche behind the scenes. There's a lot of stuff surrounding him. But in the ring, I think he's pretty good. He's his aerobatic ability is pretty impressive for a guy his size. He's going against Alex Wright, who is another guy who is great in the air. This should be a great match. And it only gets slightly more than Kevin Sullivan beating the shit out of Maverick Wild. I'm kind of upset.
Well, are you going to be more upset with where we're going?
Yeah. Rowdy's here. Roddy Piper. I'm sure this is going to go well. Tell me about it, Joseph.
Well, it's before Roddy Piper.
Oh, what? What am I missing?
Mongo and Benoit versus Chavo and Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, I completely jumped that. Yeah. Anyways, I don't have that for some reason. I just decided I was going to end it because I guess I was so mad about that.
Well,
I just,
it's not
great. Over. Yeah, Chris Benoit and Steve Mongo McMichael versus Jeff Jarrett and Chavo. 4 minutes, 1 second. This is the main event.
Yeah. So this is a storyline with also Chavo randomly thrown in. Deborah, of course, doesn't want Jarrett to get hurt, but Mongo is kind of sick of how much his wife has been into Double J. Deborah checks on Jarrett after he gets kind of thrown out and Chavo's in the ring, and she won't let him get back in the ring while Mongo and Benoit destroy Chavo. Jarrett doesn't get mad by this. Like, Chavo gets the loss and he just leaves. He doesn't get mad about anything. He just leaves. And then Arn and Flair come out for an interview with Mike Tenay. Tenay says that Arn has been the voice of reason, I guess. Arn says that would mean he would have to be a reasonable man. What an oxymoron that is. That's like some goof, which is like the fourth time we've heard goof tonight. Some goof trying to tell you that he has the perfect marriage. It doesn't exist. Side note, I think Arn just called me a goof. Anyways, Arn continues to say that he has always been an unreasonable man. If he wanted something, he took it, and he didn't have a board meeting to decide on it. He says everyone is positioned ready for war. Sting and Savage with bats, the Outsiders with lead pipes, and Sullivan brought more and more members into the Dungeon of Doom. Well, the fact of the matter is, Jeff Jarrett, you may have caught Deborah's eye, but the last guy who did that woke up about 6 weeks later in a hospital with a flea collar around his neck, sandbags holding his feet up, and saying how many of them were there. Arn seems to know a strange amount of detail about traction. Okay, interesting. Arn says that Benoit and Nancy have destroyed Sullivan's heart and his will to live, so all that's left to do is to bury the body. Flair then says mostly what he said for like months. He's almost a parody of himself at this point. It's kind of embarrassing. Then Benoit says that he and Sullivan are very similar. Yep, that tracks, and I'll just leave that right there. Mongo makes fun of the Jacksonville Jaguars and then gets mad at Deborah for her actions and wants an answer. Deborah says she would love to see Jeff Jarrett as a horseman, but she does love Mongo. And then Mongo challenges Jarrett at Super Brawl and says if he wins, he deserves to be a horseman. Deborah then talks, and this went on way too long. I gave it an F.
His main event.
Yep.
Cool. I feel like Nitro was going pretty well. And then
it was great. And then
And then the second hour 2, they flipped now. Remember, hour 2 used to be the banger.
Yeah.
And now they flipped. It's hour 1.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Again, I may have to look because maybe it has to do with the time. Maybe they start an hour earlier than Raw starts or something. So they're trying to get you in.
Time.
They're exactly the same time now, because it used to make sense, right, that the last hour is the banger because people were tuning in after Raw. People who'd watched Raw can flip over and catch the tail end of Nitro. I don't understand this now. I don't know what's going on. After that, though, what I promised is Rowdy Roddy Piper out to the ring. Another long one, Joseph. So I'm just going to, for time considerations, I'm going to let you tell it.
So Piper comes out without his son this time, and Hogan is apparently on via satellite. Piper says this is all too much for him watching Bischoff torture Randy Anderson. He didn't come and talk to Hogan via some goofball. There it is again. Satellite. He came here because last week Hogan said he wanted to fight. He says this family stuff is too much for him. He made a promise, Mr. Frodo. Don't you leave him, Roddy Gamgee. Don't you leave him. And I don't mean to. He says he was quitting and giving it all up. He says it was time to go home for his son Colton and be the father that he wasn't for half of his kids growing up, which I think is a tremendous line, very touching. He has a responsibility and then calls Hogan a bald-headed geek who had to come out and make him break his promise. He went over to Colton and he knew what he was going to do. He knelt down on one knee and said he was sorry. Colton said, "Go get him, man." Then Hogan says, "Tell somebody who cares." And Piper shouts, "Shut up, shut up." And I just laughed so hard at that. And he says he gave him a license to kill and you're the target. Then Hogan finally gets to speak. And Hogan says, "You're more pathetic than I ever dreamed you were." He says, when your little boy said, "Go and get him," you already tried and you couldn't get the job done. Hogan says Piper doctored up some footage to show the world that he supposedly won at Starrcade. Real quick side note on this. I think this is like that we've gone too far into delusion for me to actually enjoy this. Like, I don't mind Hogan being delusional, but we've gone too far where you're actually making up like doctored footage and stuff. Anyways, Hogan continues what lie did you tell your son when you said you would go home, but instead attack people from behind? Hogan says he doesn't have time to drop his busy schedule for 2 weeks. From now on, you won't be able to hide behind your kid. Hogan actually says this only in spirit. He doesn't actually say this like verbatim. I just kind of cleaned it up for him because he keeps rambling and rambling and rambling. But the point is, you can't hide behind your kid anymore. That's what he's trying to get at. Piper tells Hogan to shut his big fat mouth. He says that he is the icon. He says, in the O.J. Simpson trial, some folks say guilty and some say not. In San Francisco, they're going to say Piper guilty, Hogan finished. Hogan says that's legal, but frankly, Piper would have saved us all a lot of trouble. Piper says the only difference between Hogan and Dennis Rodman is that Hogan can't jump. This is unfortunately a gay joke. It's 1997, and that's how the show ends. I gave this a C. Piper, for the most part, is pretty good, but Hogan is a bore.
I didn't understand the what Piper said was illegal. Like that. I just, the whole thing was, I mean, I guess, Piper's saying he's going to kill Hogan. He mentions that he's got a license to kill now and kind of all that kind of stuff. But like, nah, bro, it's not illegal. But Hogan, litigious, as we've talked about. So he was cooking up a lawsuit right here. But Rowdy isn't Gawker. So I guess he decided not to pull the trigger on that. But I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm moving on.
Ooh, what a segue.
Yeah. Boom. To Thursday, Raw Thursday. Wow, that's so exciting. It's Thursday, Raw Thursday. On Thursday, where Raw is. On Thursday. Anyways, Thursday,
real
Raw.
Quick,
what
day is Raw this week?
Thursday.
Oh, gotcha.
Thursday, Raw Thursday. That's literally what they call it. And they say it over and over and over. The full thing, too. Like, they can't abridge it. It's Thursday, Raw Thursday. I did see something funny on one of the websites where they noted that it actually aired on Friday in Canada. So
that's hilarious.
Thursday, Raw Thursday on Friday in Canada. Anyways, we're at the Memorial Auditorium in Lowell, Massachusetts. And we got Raw on Thursday. Thursday, Raw Thursday.
This is going to get so played out.
You damn right. It already has, and I won't quit. So, anyways, let's talk about it because we start with Shawn's hurt, bro.
That's true.
Shawn is vacating the title, and the winner of the Final Four at the pay-per-view is gonna be the champion. Shawn's gonna be here tonight to talk about it. That's crazy, man. What did you think of this news?
It's heartbreaking. It's the Heartbreak Kid.
Wow. I loved that.
So dumb.
It is, and I think it's fantastic. Anyways, we go into the Intercontinental match on Thursday, Raw Thursday, with Rocky Maivia versus the Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And this match is, I don't know, because the website I checked doesn't have the times. So tell me about it.
This won't begin the trend just yet, but this will eventually become a huge rivalry for WWF. These men don't quite have the chemistry that they will have, and you can tell that Hunter is really driving this match. Rocky Maivia is still quite green. Honky Tonk Man joins commentary mid-match, and remember, he's been looking for like a protege for a while, and it would make sense to be one of the IC title contenders because he was apparently the greatest IC title champion of all time because he held it the longest. Real quick, he wasn't. Even then, he wasn't. But regardless, it makes sense. Like, that should be who he's going for. But instead, he says he doesn't think that Rocky Maivia or Hunter are who he's looking for. They aren't great enough. This is funny because when he does choose, it's a way worse choice. And I think we find out at an In Your House or pay-per-view pretty soon who that choice is. Anyways, Rocky ends up beating the cocky Helmsley with a roll-up for his very first championship in the WWF. Doc Hendricks interviews him and asks how he feels, and Rocky just cuts a pure babyface promo that is nothing to write home about. Overall, it is an entertaining segment. It's a really good start to Thursday Raw Thursday, and I gave it a B.
Great match to start Thursday Raw Thursday. The promo, though, I actually have I have audio from it. I actually clipped some audio from Rocky's babyface promo. If you'd like to hear it, would you like to hear it?
I would love to hear it. Scott, go ahead.
Doc, thanks for having me on the show. I'm gonna make my fans and family proud. It's just so cringe, though.
Yeah.
This is not the Rocky we know and love. He is just pure babyface. Like, you cannot get more babyface than this guy, and it's not good. It's not good. Anyways, Final Four. There's gonna be the Final Four. We're getting an ad for it. Very exciting now. And then we got Sunny. She's gonna be the ring. She's gonna be the ring announcer for the next match, which is the Headbangers versus Baba Holly and Aldo Montoya, the fabled tag team of Bob Holly and Aldo Montoya. Tell me about it.
Sunny grabs a mic and she can't find her announcement. Oh wait, it's in her bra. Did you get it, Scott?
No, I didn't get it.
Okay. Then Jerry says, I don't know what the 7 wonders of the world are, but Sunny's got 2 of them. Did you get it, Scott?
Oh, no, I didn't get it.
Okay. Anyways, so she announces a tag team match. Mosh and Thrasher make their Raw debut. I've never really been a fan of this tag team personally. I don't hate them by any stretch. They've just never really done it for me. Commentary spends the entire time talking about Shawn's upcoming announcement, like all throughout this match. The Headbangers win with a move that will eventually be called the stage dive. It's where Mosh hits a power bomb as Thrasher hits a diving leg drop on the same opponent. It's a really cool finisher, to be honest. I give this a B-. It's fine.
I like the Headbangers.
Oh, there you go.
I actually do. I mean, I don't know if they're not like my favorite tag team of all time, but they were certainly a part of the Attitude Era, and I remember them well. So, they had an important place in the Attitude Era lore. I think they get into the hardcore stuff when we start doing hardcore. I think they get kind of real involved in that. Seems to make sense with their gimmick. So overall, pretty good. But yeah, I didn't get any of your lewd jokes because much like Rocky Maivia, I'm pure. I'm a pure babyface.
Yeah.
So I don't understand those jokes. And but now we have to take a turn.
Yeah, serious turn.
Yeah, tragic turn.
Mm-hmm. Heartbreaking turn.
Dun, 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 dun. Oh, okay. So, anyways, Vince is with Gorilla Monsoon because Gorilla is here to accept the title from Shawn. Shawn has to surrender the title to Gorilla, and Shawn comes limping out, bro. Oh, I see. Man, Joseph is getting. You can't see this, ladies and gentlemen, because we don't have video yet, but I'm told it's coming soon. Joseph is stretching. He's getting ready because he is about to give the promo of his life. So I'm gonna stop it there. I'm gonna say no more. Why don't you tell me about this infamous promo? Because it really is.
Yeah, it's actually more than famous. So Shawn comes out in a very professional looking brown sports coat and a nice button up shirt. This is not very much not the Shawn that we're used to. Vin Man says that Shawn's knee injury has simply taken its toll and asked Shawn to share with the fans what is going on. Shawn says, it seems like we've done this before. This is true. A few months ago, or quite a few months ago, he had the neck injury and all that and had to vacate the title. But this time it's far more serious than last time. Oh, wait, no, it was a concussion. That's what it was. Sorry, not a neck injury. But this time is, go ahead.
Got jumped by 57 guys, you remember?
Yeah. He said, but this time is far more serious than last time. He was told he may never wrestle again. The crowd during this chants, "We want Sid," which makes Shawn actually chuckle because say what you want about Shawn, he lets the crowd do what they want and rolls with it. Shawn starts crying, he actually does, as he says that he has always tried to make his performance the most important thing and give people a good time whether he was cheered or booed. He says he doesn't know where he is at, but if he can't come back and perform at the same level he was, he can't half-ass it. He says he isn't tough enough to do this anymore, and he's going to go home, and he hands Vin Man the title. He says over the last several months, he's lost a lot of things, and one of them has been his smile. It doesn't mean a whole lot to everyone else, but it means a lot to him. He doesn't care if people make fun of him. This has to be done. He is crying, and members of the audience actually start crying as they realize this is real. This is not fake. The crowd that started by chanting "We want Sid" has slowly turned and they start cheering Shawn. Before we get into the backstage side of it, I do want to talk about the on-screen product because that's pretty much what happens. It's the infamous Shawn loses his smile promo. And there's obviously a lot of backstage stuff. We'll get into that in a second. But there's something I want to talk about with the on-screen product. There's really 2 points. One, I genuinely think Shawn is great here. He is incredibly sad. He does have tears, real tears. And I think on top of Shawn being great here, and this is incredibly controversial, I think the "I lost my smile" line is phenomenal. I love this line because whether you think it's corny or not, whether you think it's a cop-out or not, it is memorable. And Shawn was smart enough to know that that is a memorable line. It also allows you to decide instantly if you want to boo or cheer the man. No one after this was going to change their opinion on Shawn Michaels, and it's a really good point for him. Did you want to talk about any of the on-screen stuff before we get into the behind-the-scenes stuff?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. I mean, the "I've lost my smile" obviously is one of those I think many people regard as infamous moments in wrestling. A lot of people think it's bad. You like it, which I find interesting. I'm kind of indifferent to it. I like that Bret uses against him in the future. He makes, glad you got your smile back and kind of all those kind of cuts because I enjoy those back and forths. But yeah, it's really the backstage drama that we have to talk about because this is really kind of the catalyst for Bret and Shawn hating each other because Bret has a version of events here that is different than Shawn's version of events, right?
Yes. So let's address the elephant in the room. As you kind of mentioned, there's 2 camps in this. In the frankly larger and more vocal camp are Bret Hart supporters, including, oh, that's interesting, Bret Hart. Interesting. They say that Shawn wasn't really hurt. He just didn't want to job to Bret because Shawn was told he would lose the title to Bret at WrestleMania. And so Shawn decided, well, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and drop the title. Bret is quite vocal in his book, Hitman, My Real Life in the Cartoon World of Wrestling. And I quote, and this is long. On February 13th in Lowell, Massachusetts, the big news was that Shawn was forfeiting the world belt because he'd suddenly somehow sustained a career-ending knee injury and needed surgery. Undertaker looked at me and said, this was all bullshit and said, I'll believe it when I see the scar. The little fucker doesn't want to drop the belt. Taker, Sid, and I headed down the hallway to Vince's office. Shawn and Hunter, Pat, JR, and Briscoe were already there when we arrived. Vince seemed really upset that Shawn was hurt and was near to tears as he explained how I'd win the belt in the Final Four for my 4th title reign. Apologies, they're spoilers, but it's actually important. The catch in this is that Sid would work with me in a title match on the Raw the night after, and Austin would cost me the belt, setting up a new makeshift lineup for WrestleMania 13 with Taker and Sid headlining in the main event, while Stone Cold and I worked the semi-main event match. I actually liked the new storyline, accepting that Taker and Sid had every right to be the main event. But as Vince went on explaining how everything was going to change, I looked over at Taker, who tugged on the corner of his eye and made a skeptical face. Sid was tight-lipped, and Steve wore an intense glare as we had our futures rewritten, probably fearful that he was going to be turned babyface just when things were finally taking off for him. He knew that Shawn was better to have as a friend than an enemy. Back in the dressing room, Steve told me again that he supported me, but he added that he didn't want to get involved in dressing room tensions. Steve was going to ride the fence. Shawn did an in-ring interview that night, and I watched on a TV monitor backstage along with other wrestlers. He walked out without so much as a limp, and with the heartbreaking trickle of the occasional tear. He talked of having lived his dream. Fans jeered him, so the cameras cut to close-ups of girls crying. He said simply, he had to listen to his doctors. He not only hurt his knee, he had, quote, lost his smile over the last few months and was going home to find it. Every wrestler standing with me rolled his eyes as Shawn forfeited the title, handing the belt to Vince, who was caked in makeup and looked peculiarly Dracula-like as he too appeared to be fighting back tears. I'd worked a tag team match with Shawn at the Meadowlands only 3 days before, and there was nothing wrong with his knee. He hadn't wrestled since. I found myself agreeing with Taker. I'll believe this bullshit when I see the scar. So that's Bret's take on the whole thing. Whew. Okay, now going into Shawn's take on the whole thing. Shawn has 2 books. The first one is called Heartbreak and Triumph, and he had this to say about this. 2 weeks after the Rumble, I was having a 3-way match with Sid and Bret Hart when I tweaked my bad knee. By the way, real quick, he actually did have a bad knee. Regardless of whether it needed surgery or was going to put him out of action, he did genuinely have a bad knee. That is not debatable. He did have a bad knee. It swelled up and was sore, but at the time, I didn't think it was too serious. It had happened before. Just to be sure, though, I called Vince and told him I wanted to get it checked out. He mentioned Dr. James Andrews, who's worked on countless top caliber athletes. But I said, I'll just go home and get it checked there. I went to go see my doctor. He took an MRI, looked at the results, and then said to me, you will never wrestle again. What? You have no ACL in there. I know. I've been wrestling for years with no ACL. You are not going to wrestle on it anymore. Your knee has deteriorated. You need knee replacement. I was devastated. He was a doctor, and I thought his word was final. I thought my career was over. At the TV next day, which was a special Thursday edition of Raw, or you might call it Thursday Raw Thursday.
Thursday Raw Thursday.
I told Vince what my doctor said. I broke down and started crying. Vince felt for me. He knew how much wrestling meant to me. He told me no matter what happens, I'd always have a job there. Then he said, we have to get the championship belt off you. We will make an announcement tonight. That night, I went to the ring and told the world that I was retiring. I told them I had lost my smile and that I just didn't have any in me anymore to wrestle. Vince and Gorilla Monsoon were in the ring with me, and it was very emotional. It wasn't a work. The reason I was retiring was because of my knee, but the truth was my fight wasn't what it once was. I wasn't Superman anymore. I was burnt physically and emotionally. A month earlier, my mom noticed that I wasn't looking too good and said, honey, they're running you to death. You don't look so good. I'm working a lot, I said. Yeah, all the time. You don't even smile anymore. You have always had such a sweet smile. You've lost your smile. So the speech I gave about losing my smile was real. The emotion I showed out there was authentic. I broke down on national TV because I was emotionally spent. I think most of the fans that care for me know I've been open with them over the years, and I was that night. As soon as I gave that speech, the rumors started flying. Everyone wanted to know what really happened. Why did Shawn give up the title and retire? The most prevalent rumor was that I quit in protest of having to drop the title to Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. That is not true. This was not a scheme I concocted to avoid losing the title to Bret. Had I been asked to? Yes. Did I want to? No. I've said before and I'll say it again. There is no refusing to do a job. Ask Bret Hart. I like that dig, by the way. Ask the people in Montreal. It only happens if Vince allows it. I'm not going to say that I would have been fine working with Bret. I won't say my unwillingness to work with him didn't cause a problem from a creative standpoint. That's fair. But again, I'm sure I'm not the first guy who's ever done that. I retired because a doctor told me I could never wrestle again, and I took his words at face value. Now, later on in the book, he said, then I hurt my knee and the whole issue of me working with him at Mania disappeared. This is going back to Bret. If Vince would have pressed me to put Bret over, I would have. I'm sure I would have made life miserable for a lot of people, but I would have done it. When push came to shove, I always did what Vince wanted. So that's Shawn's take. Now, I looked up the wrestlers that Bret mentions in his book to see what they've said about it. Because I thought that was pretty interesting because he name drops 3 wrestlers and says they all agreed with him. So the first is Steve Austin. Steve Austin would actually severely hurt his knee soon. It's going to happen, I think, in the next night or so. I think it's actually the pay-per-view is when it happens. He really does hurt his knee. When we watched it, me and Scott both saw it and went, oh crap, how does that play out with him with a bad knee? Not only does he hurt his knee, him and Shawn end up rehabbing together after Shawn got a second opinion from that same Dr. James Andrews, who Vince wanted him to go to in the first place. So he also looked at Steve Austin's knee, and he said that, yes, if your knee gets replaced, your career may be over, but I think it has the option of rehab and then getting it back into wrestling condition. So they actually went to the same rehab center to get his knee taken care of. So Austin and Shawn were there together rehabbing. So again, his knee genuinely was jacked up. He genuinely did have no ACL. So I looked up if Steve Austin has ever said anything about this. He has never once publicly spoken on this topic. Bret also references Taker. Taker also, who has never one to shy away from what he believes to be the truth. And to be clear, Taker did not like Shawn at the time, probably deservedly so. Taker has been critical of Shawn's past demons and HBK's incidents that will happen in the future of 1997, but he has never once talked about this. So Sid was the last person I wanted to look up, and Sid is a very vocal person. And so I wanted to see what he said. And he's never said anything about this subject, but he has talked about Shawn and Bret Hart. And I thought this quote was quite interesting. He had an interview with the Wrestling Incorporated Daily podcast in 2020, where he said, quote, "I never had any experiences with anyone who was hard to deal with, just some people who weren't that talented. I think Shawn's reputation was really unwarranted. I don't know how he got it. He did a few stupid things, but we all did stupid things, but not anything to get the reputation he got." Later on, he said, quote, "I never saw anyone that he had a hard time with except for maybe Bret. Even with that, Shawn worked really hard to have good matches with him. Some of the first three-way matches that ever took place, at least the first that I've ever done, were with me, Shawn, and Bret. Really what made those three-way matches was Shawn. He didn't have an ego like Bret did, where Bret would say, quote, 'I don't know if this is good for Bret Hart,' end quote. Just silly stuff like that. When people talk in third person, that always is a giant red flag that things aren't going to go that great. Bret was a little overrated, where Shawn maybe wasn't rated highly enough," end quote.
And that's how you're going to end it, man, huh? You're just going to drop that bombshell and just, we could do this like they used to do on NPR with This American Life. He'd always go, "And you know the rest of the story." Because he'd tell some story about some person. And at the end, he'd go, "And that man was Albert Einstein. And you know the rest of the story." So I guess, man, right there, you know the rest of the story. We don't know. Yeah, I guess we don't know what the truth is. But this is certainly a really infamous moment in WWF history. The "Lost Your Smile" thing is referenced a lot. Bret's going to reference it when Shawn comes back. But the important thing is it's really kind of the breaking point, I feel like, between Shawn and Bret, where they just hate each other. Because Bret is convinced it's because Shawn doesn't want to drop the title to him at WrestleMania 13. And then this is just going to go through the entire year. They're going to be saying horrible things to each other live on TV all the time. It's going to get really nasty. It's going to go all the way to Montreal. And yeah, it's a really important moment in WWF history.
Yep.
And we'll see how it plays out. But we're not done with the night. We got to get rolling here. We got Undertaker versus Savio Vega. Tell me.
This is honestly a decent match between both men. It's a fine TV match. The venue is very compact. Like it's very personal almost. So you can hear the crowd chanting and cheering hard for Taker and shouting, "Rest in peace, rest in peace." Taker eventually hits a massive chokeslam for the win, and the Nation attack him until finally Ahmed runs in for the save and the two-men clear house. It was enjoyable. It was a lot of high action. The Ahmed Taker thing has been at least going for a week, so I'm fine with it. Gave it a C+.
After that, because I think we just kind of keep rolling here. Let me see here. No, that's pretty much it. You're right. Nation attacks. Ahmed saves him. And then we go into Psycho Sid versus Steve Austin. Austin makes his entrance, and then Gorilla Monsoon's got some stuff to say, doesn't he?
He does. Doc Hendricks interviews him, and Monsoon announces that the Final Four match at In Your House will now be for the title and no longer the number one contender match. Doc asks about Sid and his title shot because he was supposed to have a title shot at that. And Monsoon says, to be fair, Sid will get his title shot the following Monday on Raw against the winner of this Sunday's Fatal 4-Way. Then Austin immediately charges Sid during his entrance, and the crowd who was cheering Sid earlier in the night has completely turned, and they're now cheering Austin. The match does not last too long until Bret Hart interferes and gives Sid a DQ, because Hart attacked Austin. Sid, pissed about this, starts attacking Hart. They both start fighting, and Austin just lets it happen. Makes sense for him. Another enjoyable segment. I gave it a B.
Stone Cold's so great at this.
Yeah.
And it makes it even more important now that Shawn's going to be gone. I mean, Shawn really is the face of the organization right now. So this is really a moment for Austin to come up, and he does in a big way. You know, I feel like the Attitude Era and honestly WWF, and we've talked about this, is saved by Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, and I think this probably plays a big role in that, right? Because they've got to completely rejigger the roster now. Mm-hmm. To figure out what they're going to do now that their headliner, Shawn, is gone. Like you said, I think that pretty much does it, right? They brawl out and that ends it. And, is there more? Oh,
to the show? Yeah.
I thought the show was over. That seemed to be the way to end it, right? But that's right. We got 2 hours. I'm so used to them having like 3-4 matches and being done. I've got to remember this. All right. We do the replay of Shawn losing his smile. Very sad stuff. And then we got a tag team match. We got Farouk and Crush versus Bulldog and Owen Hart. Tell me.
Right before that, Vader is interviewed, and we get to see why he shouldn't talk.
Oh, yeah, I did have that.
Going into this match, though, matches like this are weird because both teams are heel teams. So the dynamic is just kind of off. Bret is interviewed during the match and is asked about Shawn's announcement. And I love this moment because Bret is clearly fucking pissed, but has to try to make this work. And that's my favorite version of Bret, when he just really is not happy about something. He says he finds it saddening to hear that that Shawn's going to have to hang him up. And then he puts over Shawn, saying no one worked harder than him. And you can just see him struggling to say nice things about Shawn. He does the job, so I will give him credit, but he's not pleased doing this. He's being professional, but you could tell he's not happy. Vin Man asks him about him versus Vader, and Bret says it's like wrestling a cement truck. Jerry tries to set up a joke about his own mother asking him for food money, and Vin Man just tramples all over it to call the action of the match. The ref doesn't see Owen tag in, and Bulldog gets his shit kicked in while Owen argues with the ref. Owen finally does get in and wrecks house before getting thrown out by Crush. Owen says his knee is injured and gets counted out, which Bulldog doesn't see because he's fighting Farouk. So this is very similar to last week. Gets counted out again for the win for Farouk and Crush, but no titles change hand or anything like that. Owen never helps Bulldog during this, even though he's getting double teamed by Farouk and Crush. This gets a D+. I didn't overall like it, and the plus is exclusively for Owen.
Yeah, Owen again is having his knee troubles, so he can't help. He's hurt, man. And Bulldog tries to help him limp back, but he says no. But Owen says no. We got to get the titles first, which I kind of liked. I liked that kind of subtle move that the titles were the most important thing to Owen, right? And he goes limping back for him. So I thought that was good. But that brings us to our main event: Vader versus Bret Hart. And there's a lot going on here, Joseph. Tell me.
So they both come out, and then before the match starts, Taker comes out to cut a promo, which is kind of nice because they've had all 4 of the guys who are in this main event at the pay-per-view cut a promo. He says, there's a problem with respect. What a kid I got. I told him about the birds and the bees, and he told me about the butcher of my wife. Oh! I can tell my parents say to me, my bath toys were a toaster and a radio. Oh! When I was born, I was so ugly, the doctor slapped my mother. Hi-ya-cha! Seriously, though, he says in 4 days, they will have to look each other in the eyes of the Reaper and know that they can't beat him. It's a fine promo from Taker. It's pretty simple. The time is at hand, and they will rest in peace. Then Vader just starts swinging at Bret Hart because, they do have a match. Then Austin attacks Hart as we go to commercial. We come back from commercial, and Austin was taken away, I guess. Austin eventually shows up in the balcony and distracts Bret Hart. Vader takes advantage of this and goes for the moonsault, but he misses. Bret covers him for the win, and Austin is pissed as the show closes. They really quickly had to rush this. Like they had like 4 minutes for this. They were just, from the promo to the match to all the Austin shenanigans, they were rushing the shit out of this to get this through. So I'm giving it a C. It was just whatever.
Some time management issues on Thursday, Raw Thursday.
Yeah. It's almost like
2
they're
hours.
not prepared for 2 hours.
I guess not. Yeah, since it kind of just, they dumped it on us without warning. Well, who won? Nitro.
Yeah. I mean, I think Raw was consistently fine, but Nitro had like really heavy moments that were fantastic.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, obviously you have this kind of historic moment with Shawn and losing his smile. But I thought overall, Nitro just had better stuff going on. I liked most of the NWO stuff on Raw tonight. I think Randy Anderson's great in this role of just this poor guy who's lost his job and he's trying to get it back. Like, I'm sympathetic for him. It's working. So yeah, I definitely think Nitro won. I agree with you 100%. You're not wrong on this one. Anything more to say, or should we close it out for the listener?
Let's close it out for the listener.
All right. That's it. Our next pay-per-view is In Your House 13 Final 4. If you want to hear us talk about that, subscribe to the Patreon. It's only $2 a month. What a deal.
What a deal. Plus, with these being 2 hours now for each program, we have long episodes again. So for sure, last week's episode was a long episode. $2 a month.
I tell you, we try to keep it to an hour because we respect your time, but we go over. So if you want to listen to us ramble even more than we already are, and I know you do, you can listen to the Patreon where you get the raw audio, the uncut, unedited, uncensored versions of this program, which we do sometimes cut because sometimes we say things that are just not appropriate. But it's mostly unedited. Anyways, that does it for us. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you being with us for episode 76. I think we're getting close to 100 here.
We are.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Hey, everybody, it's Joseph. And guess what? Not only can you listen to us every Monday on Spotify, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube Podcasts as well. Just search for Monday Night Wars Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at MON Night Wars Pod, on Instagram at Monday Night Wars Podcast, or just email us at mnwpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, subscribe to our Patreon at Monday Night Wars Podcast. For $2 a month, you get every pay-per-view from WCW and WWF during this era, as well as additional content later on. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you here next time on the Monday Night Wars Podcast.